Good afternoon. My name is Tokan. I'm a resident here at Snow Mountain Zen Center for almost exactly 2 years now. Was invited to be the Shuso for the summer Ango, maybe back in about April. And my talk the other day was regarding the Genjo Koan, which was an essay by Dogen Zenji, written back in 1233. Dogen Zenji being our founding teacher of the Soto lineage in Japan. Genjo Koan translates as actualizing the fundamental point. The kanji roughly means something like nothing hidden, nothing to be revealed, a wholeness or completeness with impartiality. Like the ocean, open and accepting of the various rivers and streams feeding into it with complete equanimity. To actualize this means that our conditioned selves, the identities and labels that we apply to this being, the labels and identities bestowed on us by society, must be dropped. This dropping off is our very body and mind as we have come to know it, as we have come to think of ourselves. This self that we think of is merely a convenience of sorts for society, for our culture. But fundamentally, the self has the quality of a dream, a fantasy. We can call it a delusion or the conditioned self. To drop off this conditioned body and mind is liberation, the total emancipation that Dogen refers to in the Fukan Zazengi, as a matter of fact. This is not a stepwise process of betterment or even of transformation, self-development, personal growth. Those ideas themselves are but a fantasy, a delusion. There is the authentic self, the unborn, or there is this dependent reality of a conditioned self from which it is impossible to separate out the three poisons: greed, anger, and indifference. The equality of practice and realization is the way of liberation from this conditioned self. This equality of practice and realization is known in Japanese as Shuso Ito, or Hansho Myoshu, original realization, wondrous practice. Oju-san made clear in his talk yesterday of the way that our forms of practice can bring this authentic expression to life, to our lives. Now we can look at a rose bush and complain about that bush having thorns. Or we can also look at that same thorny bush as being something amazing and be amazed at the wonder of the flowers that it beholds. And the distance between our conditioned selves and our liberation is just this far apart, just this close. When we raise our hands in Gasho, we bring these two opposite aspects of ourselves together. I encourage you not to be sloppy. And do not be mistaken that I'm not referring to some kind of positivism or a philosophy of looking on the bright side of things. This is pointing to something more basic in our capacity as human beings, in our humanity, in our capacity as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. To know this intimately is to have the confidence to mingle freely with jade dragons and bejeweled elephants. Do remember this. Now I'm actually today we'll be moving into talking about a particular event in history in our Zen lineage. It goes back to the time of the sixth patriarch. We're talking 7th century China. It involves the sixth patriarch himself, Huineng, who was the sixth patriarch of Zen in China, the first patriarch being Bodhidharma. There's a lot of history that I would encourage you at some point in your practice life to look into further. I won't, you can just go on and on and on with the details of all this history. And it's very rich and rewarding on a very personal level if you take the time. But I'll attempt to keep it rather focused here on this one particular instance. Now, so the sixth ancestor, Huineng, and it also involves this kind of outsider monk named Yang Chia. And Yang Chia was born on the southeast coast of China. Today, I think the nearby city would be Wenzhou. And he was enlightened rather early on in his life, although he had studied throughout various areas of China as a young person. And I'm not even sure exactly when he met up with Huineng. But through all of his travels, a lot of it had to do with what's known as another lineage or branch of Zen called Tendai. And he had some friends that were closely associated with that lineage in school that was located not far. The main mother temple was located not very far north, on the not far from the coast, from where young Cha had grown up. But as a result of seeing and reading the Malakirti Sutra, which is a well-known sutra from even earlier in Buddhist lore in India, Yang Cha began to clarify his own mind. And he had a meeting with a disciple of Huineng's, the sixth patriarch. This guy's name is Xuan Se, who had come to see him. They were friends. And the words which Yang Cha spoke after his realization happened to agree with the tradition of all the patriarchs. So this friend of his, who is a disciple of the sixth patriarch, said, "Under what master did you attain the Dharma?" And Yang Cha replied, "I have studied all the sutras and commentaries, each one with a master's approval. But lately, in the study of the Vimalakirti Sutra, I have attained a realization of the Buddha mind doctrine, but do not have anyone to confirm me." So Tse said, "Such a thing was possible before the time of the Buddha, but after this time, all those who have self-realization without a master are naturally considered to be outside the way." Yang Cha replied, "I wish that you would be my confirmer." His friend replied, "My word is of little weight. But at Kaoji Monastery, there is the sixth patriarch, Huineng, who is a great master, and people gather to him like clouds from the four directions to receive the Dharma. If you'll go there, I will accompany you." So therefore, they went together to visit the sixth patriarch there at Kaoji Monastery. So Yang Cha shows up at the monastery and encounters Huineng, the sixth patriarch, and he pays his respects to the sixth patriarch by circumambulating him 3 times. But then he shook his staff and remained standing. And this is a little outside of the protocol of meeting a grand master of Zen, to remain standing and not be a little more deferential. So Huineng is taken by surprise a little bit, and he asks, "As a Sramana of the order, you're supposed to be completely versed in the 3,000 forms of dignified conduct and the 80,000 rules of deportment. Whence, O exalted one, have you come with such grand arrogance?" And Yang Cha replies, "Birth and death is a serious matter. The demon of impermanence comes in an instant. And the master answered, why not understand the essential principle of no birth so as to make an end of swift impermanence? Yangche replied, what is essential is precisely not born, and once understood, impermanence already has come to an end. That is so, said the master. Thereupon Yangche made the complete ceremonial respects and proceeded at once to take his leave. So he's just met the sixth patriarch. They've had an encounter. The master acknowledges him, and Yangche is ready to head back home. But the master says, aren't you going away too soon? And Yangche replies, since originally there is no such thing as motion, so how, pray, can there be quickness? Well, who knows there is no motion? Asked Wei Neng. And Yangche replied, you yourself made the distinction, sir. You, said the master, have attained a most profound idea of no birth. How, countered Yangche, can no birth have an idea? Well, without an idea, returned the master, who then makes the distinction? There can be no distinction. There can be a distinction, Yangche said, which is not a conception. And at this, Wei Neng replied, you have spoken well. At least stay over one night. And from that time on, he was called One Night Yangche. And afterwards, Yangche wrote a sutra called the Song of Awakening, the Shodoka. It's known as the Shodoka in Japanese, which was widely circulated and is well studied throughout Zen communities to this day. Although I've actually never actually heard about it from my time here at the Zen Center. As an introduction to this sutra, the Song of Awakening, it's been a Zen favorite since it first appeared over 1,000 years ago. And the man whose name has been attached to this poem is Yangche. Like many monks of note, he was referred to by his place of birth in addition to his ordination name. Located on China's southeast coast, Yangche was the name of one of two counties from which the city of Wenzhou was formed. Yangche was born there about 670, and his father died when he was young, and his mother became a nun when he was 8. He and his older sister were ordained then as well, and they lived together with their mother at Wenzhou's Kaiyun Monastery. Because Yangche refused to abandon his filial duties, he was criticized by other monks. Monks are supposed to leave home. But Yangche continued to care for his mother until she died, and for his sister as well until he died. So as a young monk, Yangche visited other Buddhist teachers, and that was what monks were expected to do, to expand their understanding of the Dharma. So like Wei Neng, Yangche didn't have a teacher. His teacher, he tells us in the verse, was the Buddha. But still, finding someone like Wei Neng to verify his understanding must have given him confidence to put what he understood into words. Yangche's sister actually compiled what he had left behind, which included this sutra, the Song of Awakening. And like most good poetry, Yangche's song leaves more unsaid than it says, and encourages readers to fill in the blanks. And over the centuries, thousands of monks and scholars have tried to fill in these blanks with lectures and commentaries. And I would add that really what drew my attention to this sutra, okay, let me go back a little bit further. Many years ago when I first came to Sonoma Mountain Zen Center, and I had my first exposure to reading the Platform Sutra of Wei Neng, which is where this encounter is recorded. This was a one encounter between the patriarch, sixth patriarch, and various other people who come to meet him and are described, their encounters are described in this Platform Sutra. This is the one that stood out to me head and shoulders above all the others for some reason. And at this time, recently I discovered that a well-known Zen master of Japan, Kodo Sawaki Roshi, had written a commentary specifically on this sutra. And that impressed me very much, that he considered this sutra of such importance to put a commentary on it. And this commentary is book length. And if you're going to read that sutra, I would highly encourage you to consider using the guidance of Kodo Sawaki to navigate it with you. His insights on it are worth the while. Within a few generations, though, after young Chia, that lineage faded away altogether. This reminds us that the teachings, profound as they may be along the way, are not guaranteed to go on forever. There's no guarantee that this lineage that has been carried on for 2,500 years from teacher to student will continue from teacher to student into the future. This is a precious, precious teaching, way of life that we've inherited from our ancestors that go all the way back there. And it has drawn us to be here ourselves personally, which carries some import. And for it to continue on into the future, it's on us, on our shoulders, to take up the mantle and be present and apply ourselves, our best efforts to continue this tradition. After preparing for this talk today, actually after delivering the talk the other day, Tuesday, on the Genjo Koan of Dogen's, I realized, I hadn't known before, that Dogen's time in China, 4 years, he spent the first 2 years going from teacher to teacher, temple to temple, monastery to monastery. But it wasn't until 2 years after he was there that he ended up meeting his ultimate master teacher, Ru Jing, known as Tendo Nyojo in Japanese. They were only together for 2 years, teacher and student, teacher and disciple. That's precious few time. After those 2 years, I'm not sure in what order, but Ru Jing died, passed on, and Dogen returned to Japan. That's all the time they had together. Kwang Roshi had 10 years with Suzuki Roshi before Suzuki Roshi's passing in 1971. And in fact, Kwang Roshi wasn't fully trained or prepared for his transmission at the time. So that had to wait some years and be fulfilled by Suzuki Roshi's son, Hoitsu Suzuki, some years later, about 5 or 6 years later, while he trained with Kobanshina Roshi down in the peninsula south of San Francisco. So again, these teachings are not guaranteed to go on forever. And hopefully you can take advantage of your time here to make a difference. Ru Jing himself was known to be a very humble master, wearing only the simple black robes of a monk and foregoing the ornate robes gifted to him by emperors. He diligently applied himself to all manner of labor around the monastery, including servicing the bathrooms, which must have been a bit dingier than the likes of what we have today. This may well have been the inspiration that Suzuki Roshi is known for having himself selflessly clean toilets after hours while he was training at Heiji as a young man. A practice that we ourselves continue with our Ango Shuso's servicing of the toilets today. I'm actually not going to read any of the Shodoka because, like I said, it's a bit more substantial than the Genjo Koan, which is only a few pages. It's a relatively short essay. But Shodoka is a substantial document in itself. But I'd like to close out with a poem that I actually read last month at a student talk that applies equally here and is really the spirit of what I want to communicate today. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled from the peaks of the mountains through the long winding road crossing forest and village, and in front of her she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear, because that's where the river will know it's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean. This is a poem by Khalil Gibran in his book, The Prophet.